Happy Canada Day. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the focus group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. We opened up with Happy Canada Day. John, can you believe it's already July 1st?
I'm having trouble even processing that, to be honest with you.
So it's Canada Day, and so I used to always say that Canada Day was the equivalent of our 4th of July.
4th of July, yeah.
But then I looked it up to make sure I was okay. So I looked it up. Canada Day is the National Day of Canada. It's a federal statutory holiday, and it celebrates the anniversary of the Canadian Confederation, which occurred July 1st, 1867, when 3 separate colonies of the United Canadas got together. So Ontario and Quebec was one colony. Mm-hmm. Nova Scotia and New Brunswick were united in a single dominion within the British Empire called Canada. So Canada Day is often referred to informally as Canada's birthday. However, the term birthday is an oversimplification. Canada Day is the anniversary of just one important event as the entire country made its way toward full sovereignty. So Canada Day for our friends in Canada. We've got our Canadian flag out.
You do?
Fly that. Yeah, we have a Canadian flag in front of the house, and we have an American flag, of course. We've got a Delaware flag, my fraternity flag. We have a college flag, my boathouse flag. There's a number of flags. We've got a lot of flags.
Did you post something on Facebook about a candle burning out and then the new candle being put in its place?
Yeah, and I can't get it. I don't know how to get it off, like how to take it out. So we were sitting outside.
Yeah, I recognize the chairs. It's the front. You were in the front.
And there was a candle burning, and I had music playing in the background. It was classical music. It was in the evening. And so music came on, and then I thought I'd be artsy. So I said to Richard, here, put the candle on top there. Somebody thought we were having a seance. Someone thought we were doing some ritualistic thing or something. I thought, God, it's just putting the candle on there. So it went to Reels or something on Facebook.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. I don't know how to take it down. I keep getting people saying, is this some sort of some ritualist
is there
or
something going on? I was like,
devil worshiping or
yeah, I was watching it thinking, well, this is kind of cute and fun, and I'm learning how to put a new candle over an old. But here's another well, maybe it's not a non sequitur. With Pride in the rearview mirror, we have Showtime as part of our cable package here in the city, and they ran for most of June Queer as Folk and the L Word.
Oh wow!
And it was such. I actually made notes about this because I dropped into each of these shows to watch some of the episodes. And I got to tell you, Tim, I'm not sure when the last time was that you saw either of the series, but talk about a time capsule. It really feels like it was, 20 years ago, right? Because I think these came out in 2003 or 5 around. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, early 2000s. Yeah.
And with the Queer as Folk, a lot of the storylines revolve around HIV and HIV prevention and AIDS. And of course I was like, and then I realized this was before combination therapy. It's before PrEP. It's before undetectable levels. It's before all this stuff. And it was really like watching something. Like I felt like I was looking through some kind of a machine that could show you like the past in clear detail. And then I switched to the L Word, and I actually watched most of season 1. And then began a little bit of seasons 2 and dropped into 3 and 4. 1 was the one that you know the best because you guys had some script say, because the character Dana, the tennis player, was going to be represented by Subaru. One of our ads is in the show. They go to some party or a banquet and there's this spread and what is that out? Get out and stay out. What does that actually mean? Remember how it was on our
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody else, probably a lot of our listeners saw these shows as well. And it reminded me of a time when representation and stuff like this was coming. These are huge things when they came out, right?
Well, it was before marriage equality.
Yep.
It was also before everybody had easy access to they were cell phones, but they were like razor phones. Remember?
Yeah.
And texting was tap,
yeah.
tap, 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 tap to get an E.
It was the BlackBerry or the Razor, but it wasn't
Yeah.
smartphone. Yeah.
It wasn't smartphone. And I mean, the smartphone is really, I'd seen some story about this, how that really changed an awful lot of people in many ways. I mean, you go to a restaurant now and you just see people sitting there having dinner and they're both on their phones and not paying
talking.
attention to one another, not talking. It's too bad. I don't know if we'll ever get away from that. But that's why I was watching some old Seinfeld, and it was the same sort of thing. They have, for reference, I guess, kind of an old an old computer desktop in the corner that's never on. They never used
I know
the
the one
computer.
you're talking. I think Jerry had like a old Mac or something. It was just basically sitting there.
Just sitting there, never on, never used, and no cell phones, nothing. And it was just, it's funny to watch shows like that because
The
there's
technology.
just none of the technology is there. Yeah. So you wonder what's going to be in the next. People talk about glasses we're going to be wearing that are going to be able to have things that we're going to hear or see. But what do you think will be next? What will be the next big tech thing? Do you know? Any guess?
With the heat dome, maybe it's clothing that keeps you cool while the planet burns up. I'm making that up. But they want things like smart glasses to be the next thing.
Yeah.
But, Apple came out with their Apple Vision. That didn't really do anything. Google did have something or Meta had something like that for a while. The Meta glasses, that didn't really gain traction. We'll see what happens.
I thought Apple was going to come out with a TV as a hardware, but that never happened, did it?
They looked at it and then they decided to just do the box, the Apple TV over the top. They call it OTT over the top. Yeah. But no, it's so anyway, that was a weird, and I also noticed some other programming that had been on in June, particular movies, In and Out with Kevin Kline. There are some that I wish we would see though, that I remember. Like I would love to have them broadcast the movie Trick again. That was with, what were the actors again? Tori Spelling is in it. It's about a guy that sees a go-go boy at a bar in Manhattan, and the two of them kind of get a connection, but they travel around the city trying to find a place to hook up for the evening, but they can't because everybody has roommates, blah blah blah. And in the morning, the go-go boy goes home, but he gives the other guy his phone number. And the last scene always makes me like, oh my God. He's in Sheridan Square, which is near Christopher Street, and he goes to a payphone and he calls the number the kid gave him. And it actually reaches his real answering machine. He hears his voice. I'm not home right now. And then he hangs up the phone. He smiles. He's like, I have a real number. I'm going to call this guy later. Phone booths, bars.
How the hell do you remember that plot?
Oh, because Bob and I love that film. We thought it was a really cute film. It's not a hard plot, Tim. I mean,
you remember everything.
It's a problem. Trust me, it's a problem.
Jeez. So on that happy note, Mr. Nash, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Oh, this one. You're going to love this one. So there's a guy on Long Island, and it's called, the headline is Long Island Trump car owner turns down $50K settlement and holds out for twice as much. So a Long Island man turned his cars into rolling political billboards. Now those same vehicles are driving a legal fight that refuses to slow down. He has, at the center of this is a fleet of Porsche Carreras, a Jeep Wrangler, and a Humvee, all wrapped in pro-Trump messaging and oversized flags. Some of it gets explicit, taking direct aim at political figures. Long Beach, Long Island. Reaction has been instant and divided. Some neighbors cheer him on, others just want the cars gone. And that's where this took a weird turn, because a lot of people complained to the city, and they actually invoked some strange, or their interpretation of a law, which is causing problems now, because he filed a $25 million federal lawsuit against the city, claiming that it's abusing his First Amendment rights. And his logic is very blunt. If the government can dictate what he can't put on his own cars, the gap between regulation and outright censorship gets razor thin. Now, I don't know about you, but I know upstate, I have people, they have flat, like I'm on my bike rides, I'll be going on a beautiful road and I'll see a big Trump flag flying on someone's barn, and it says like Trump 2024, fuck your feelings. I mean, yeah. I could complain, but they have a right to do it, right?
Yeah.
So basically, he drives around in these cars, and he really pisses people off. And they complain to the city, and the city finally stepped in and started to do something. It's been stuck in court for a while. The city made it, by a while, I mean, the city made its move back in 2021. So we're looking at 5 years of back and forth. And now he claims he wants $100,000 to win his case. I guess that means he still gets to wrap the cars and drive around with the big flags on it, right?
Yeah, there's a car here in Rehoboth that the guy parks it right in the center of town. It's full of Trump flags and stickers and the whole deal. And pays the parking, just park. And there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's freedom of speech, but it's the same thing. People complain. People call City Hall. It's the same with the T-shirt shops. If people were complaining about T-shirt shops, and again, there's not much you can do about it. You just, I guess, have to ignore it or not buy it, and hopefully it goes away soon, right?
Well, when Tim was at Subaru, there was this whole interesting conversation about how people branded their vehicles, stickers and stuff. Basically, they told you who they were by what they put on their car, canoeing, kayaking, nurses for whatever. And one paragraph here I kind of agree with. This is, for drivers and car enthusiasts, this one hits close to home in a way that goes beyond politics. Cars have always been a form of expression. Decals, wraps, slogans, full builds. Drivers have used their vehicles to show identity, attitude, and opinion for decades. That freedom is part of what makes car culture what it is. And I agree with that. And I do find the other stuff distasteful. Now, on the flip side, there's a guy that drives a Tesla Cybertruck up here in our neighborhood. I can't tell you. And he illegally parks it every time you walk by it. There are parking tickets. People call it in because they hate him and they hate the car. There are key scratches along the side. I think that's wrong. But people do that, right?
Right. Why do people call him in? Is he illegally parked? Or?
Mm-hmm. And he could probably get away with it because they don't always patrol. But one time Bob was going to the subway and some guy was on his phone and Bob heard him reading off the license plate. I mean, and I heard this, Tim, I think I sent you this hilarious thing about the guy that dresses up as Dr. Zayas.
Yes.
The comedian, and it's called Hanging with Dr. Z. One of his little sketches is he goes, we all thought the car of the future was going to be like the Jetsons, a bubble that you flew around. And he goes, instead, someone came along and a ketamine addict came along and put a driving wheel in a dumpster.
That's exactly
a driving wheel in a dumpster. How good is that, right? Anyway, so that's what caught my eye. The Long Island Trump car guy is still fighting his case, and he wants $100,000 to settle the case, and he'll still be able to drive with all that crap on the car.
Wow, mine's different. It comes from our friends in Hackensack, Hackensack, New Jersey, right across the border from New York City, right? So the headline is: Woman was drunk and high when she fell 10 stories down a trash chute.
Do you even need to say anything else? I mean,
you really don't. But what interested me about this, why I caught my eye, is I thought, how did she end up in a trash chute? So it says, police say drugs and alcohol played a factor. I guess, surprise, surprise, after a woman fell 10 stories down a trash chute last week in Hackensack, New Jersey. They said that the victim had remained in the hospital at the time of the stories. It was a couple weeks ago. Said she was a 24-year-old woman. Said she apparently was high on drugs and alcohol. She climbed into the trash chute on the 14th floor. Now, this is where it gets crazy. They don't know why. So I'm thinking, did she lose something?
Yeah.
Did she drop something down the chute? So she's on the 14th floor. She climbed in the trash chute. This is around 1 p.m. Lo and behold, she starts going down. It's not like an elevator. So she's screaming. You can hear her, they said in the apartment, because she's going down the trash chute. Thankfully, the trash chute was jammed up around the 4th or 5th floor with garbage. So it stopped her fall. So she got some, pretty major injuries or whatever, but she lived. She's fine that way, broke some bones or whatever. And they said, thank God for the clogged garbage chute that it broke her fall. But so the firefighters came, people heard her screaming. And so they couldn't figure out how to get her out of the chute, because when they looked in and they saw that the chute was full in the basement. So they tried to assess where she was. It took them about 30 minutes. They said it was a technical rescue. They said it required using saws to cut through the metal chute and breach the walls.
Oh my
so
God.
if this was your condo, John, can you imagine? So they have to cut
cannot.
through.
I cannot. No.
They had to cut through the walls in the building between the
Figure out where, and not
the
cut
fifth,
her.
fourth, and third floor, right? And then cut through the chute, and they pulled her out. They said they had to pull mounds of garbage out to finally get her. And they said they pulled the woman out feet first. One firefighter actually suffered cuts from the jagged metal left by them having to cut it open to get her out, I guess like a can. They said she was visiting somebody in the building. Once they got her out, they said it was obvious she was under the influence of something. They said, but the stuck garbage bags had broken her fall, and she's lucky that happened because that's why she's alive. She lived there. So as I said, I thought maybe she lost something. They said they have security footage to confirm that nobody forced her, nobody pushed her or anything. They just said she wandered into the trash room and got into the chute and went on her way. So they said there was no foul play.
Tim, and went on her way.
Yeah.
As if she's doing a ride at an amusement park.
I mean,
get on.
I'm curious as to how skinny she was. These trash chutes aren't that big, right?
No. The one in our building is just enough for a medium size, kind of one of those white kitchen garbage bags to go down. And you have to sometimes push it. And it does end up in a different part of the building. And if you're not careful, I mean, I can't imagine like being stuck in. I would freak out completely, like from a claustrophobia point of view. Yeah. Wow.
No,
I guess it's lucky she was drunk, right?
Well, that's what they said, and she did fall, about 10 floors or more. So, I don't.
Wow.
I don't know. I'd be petrified. I'm claustrophobic, and so I would have trouble with it. But
you did pretty well on the St. Louis Arch.
Yeah, well, that was opened a little. That was open. If we were in that capsule and it was closed. In that little pod, or at least if we were close.
The one that went up,
yeah. I don't know. Seemed to be okay.
I think
I needed to do it because I knew I would never be there again.
Tim, you
and so
a lot of
when
things
you said
on
you were
that
going to
trip,
go.
Yeah, you and I did that because we knew. Yeah.
Chances of you and I being at the Arch again are pretty slim.
Very slim. Although we had a great time in St. Louis. You booked an amazing hotel, the Moon something hotel.
Yeah, it was a cool hotel. Good pizza there.
It was all themed around like Apollo missions and sci-fi, and you picked it for me, and they had good Manhattans too.
Yeah, it was a good.
That was our drink of choice on that trip.
That was a good spot. Good stuff.
Tim was that, by the way. That was like bump, 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 bump. Nash, you got to be up. You got to be ready. You got to be going. Yeah.
Well, in Oklahoma, we stayed at a great place. The one that the listeners recommended, though, was a bit of a miss.
the end of the Turquoise Bear.
Yeah. Oof.
I'm bending down to
Remember how dirty and dusty the room was?
The room was filthy, and that's when. I remember the day. That was the day I figured out
the moldy Danish at the breakfast. No.
That's the day I figured out your iPad Verizon problem, and I said, "Say this, say this, say this," because we'd been in the car.
I was yelling at Verizon. Yeah,
and it got fixed. And Tim, instead of saying like, "Oh, that's," he said, "Why didn't you tell me this before?"
Yeah, you should have just done it, John.
I said I didn't know what the problem was until I heard what you were saying and what they were doing, and it was a funny trip. It was a very funny trip.
Yeah. Well, that was one of my favorite cross country trips.
Mm-hmm.
So, the business birthday this week.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
Estee Lauder, do you know her, John?
I was surprised at this, Tim. I didn't realize she was born so early in the century.
Yeah, well, she was born Josephine Esther Mentzner, and changed her name to Estee Lauder. She was born July 1st, 1908. She died in 2004 at 95 with some pulmonary heart issues. American businesswoman, she co-founded with her husband the eponymous cosmetics company Estee Lauder, with her husband, who was Joseph Lauter, Lauter. Changed the name
they changed it to Laud. Okay.
Der. In 1998, she was the only woman on Time magazine's list of the 20 most influential business geniuses
Wow.
in the 20th century. She had a famous quote, "I've never worked a day in my life without selling. If I believe in something, I sell it, and I sell it hard." So
I like
interestingly enough, Josephine, she was born in Queens, New York, to Hungarian Jewish parents. And although she claimed she was European aristocracy growing up.
Okay.
So, and which was later discredited in her biography. Somebody had written called Beyond the Magic, Estee Lauder. Even the New York Times and the New Yorker said she was not aristocratic at all. She had created this whole myth about her. They said one of our favorite stories was she said she was brought up by a Viennese mother in fashionable Long Island in a sumptuous home with stables, a chauffeured car, and an Italian nurse. But she was really just, her parents were emigrated. They were Jews from Hungary and had a shoe shop. And she was one of 8 kids in Queens. And her name was supposed to be, I won't say it correctly because it's Hungarian, but it's Eszter, Esther.
Yeah.
And they decided last minute to change her name to Josephine.
Okay.
But her nickname was Estee. So as she was growing up, she decided to put an accent over Estee, the nickname, to make it French.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Right?
So she spent much of her childhood trying to make ends meet. And she worked in her parents' hardware store. And she said she learned a lot about retail and entrepreneurship. And as she grew older, she had an uncle named Dr. Schatz. And he was a chemist, so he worked at a pharmacy. You know,
almost sounds like Bewitched Dr. Bombay, but anyway.
Dr. Bombay, Dr. Schatz. And he had a company called New Way Laboratories, which sold beauty products, lotions, and rouge. Okay. And so she'd leave the hardware store. Was interested in working with her uncle out of school. So after school, she'd go and she would watch him blend different types of drops of perfume or fragrance together. And she really enjoyed that. And she came up with her own thing called Viennese cream, Dr. Schatz's Viennese cream. And she ended up selling it to beauty shops and resorts, and people loved it. So it says, I just love this because of the name of it. One day she was getting her hair done at the House of Ash Blondes. That's the name of the salon in New York. The salon's owner, Florence, asked Lauder about her perfect skin. She returned the next day, started handing out samples of her uncle's cream and demonstrated its use. Florence Morris was so impressed, he asked her if he could sell her products in the salon. So this is 1946. She and her husband decided, well, let's launch Estee Lauder Cosmetics. And they opened a location at 501 Madison Avenue. And she introduced her first fragrance called Youth Dew. And it was a bath oil which doubled as a perfume. They said prior to this, French perfumes, you put a drop behind your ear.
Yes.
But she advocated to kind of bathe yourself in this. So this Youth Dew was really a bottle that you would put into bath water. And her first year, she sold about 50,000 bottles. When I think it stopped in 1984, she was selling 150 million bottles a year of this Youth Dew. There was lots of awards she's won over the years and so forth. The company grew and grew and grew. She'd received all types of medals, business honors, business awards. She married, as I said, she married Joseph Lautner. They had children. They divorced, and then they got married again. So she married him 2 times. And somebody asked her, they said, why did you remarry your first husband? She said, they remained married until he died. She said, I regretted the first divorce. I had thought that I'd married too young and perhaps I missed out on life. So she got a divorce, found out, wasn't so great. Went back
out. Okay.
Right. Went back to the old husband. She died at 95, as I say, in 2004. Estee Lauder, I did not know this, second largest cosmetics company in the world beyond L'Oreal. They own a diverse portfolio of brands, including brands like Clinique, Aveda, Bobbi Brown, Aramis, MAC, Kors, Hilfiger, Birch, Coran, you name it, they are licensing deal with them. She first carried, they first carried products and cleansing oils and lotions, and opened up their first department store account with Saks Fifth Avenue in Manhattan was their first department store in 1948 that carried their products. And in Harrods in London was their first international account. It says Estee Lauder, one of the unique things, as I said, Estee Lauder's Clinique brand became the very first women's cosmetic company to introduce a second line for men. And this was in 1976. I remember it was a big deal with Clinique.
Gray bottles, Clinique for men.
Right.
Yeah.
They said they began this separate line called Skin Supplies for Men, which today still continues to sell at all Clinique counters worldwide, including Russia.
Wow.
So anyway, but then I said she had licensing deals with Michael Kors, Tommy Hilfiger, Tory Burch, Donna Karan, and Tom Ford, blah, blah, blah. So, but you can't, right? You can't fault her for her smarts.
A couple things that I noted when you were going through her history. They started Estee Lauder in 1946.
Yep. Madison Avenue, 501 Madison Avenue.
Which is actually 52nd Street in Madison. It's like right in the heart of Midtown. St. Patrick's is a block over. Rock Center's there. 46, though. So that's kind of the tail end of World War II.
Yep.
Interesting time to start a cosmetics company, right?
Yeah.
And on the Clinique, I remember when Clinique was purchased or folded into Estee Lauder. And I remember when I went... I was with a friend once. We went to Bloomingdale's. He was going to buy Clinique for Men. And they were out of this one particular product that he wanted. Remember our friend Steve Kimmerling?
Yep.
They were out of this one product. And the saleswoman goes, well, don't worry about it. We have it. It's right here. And it was in the women's bottle. And he's like, no, I want the men's version. She said, it's the same thing.
Was it cheaper, I wonder?
It was maybe a different price, but
That's
it
funny.
was hard for him to fathom that they had. She said, she goes, you got to trust me, guys. She goes, this is the exact same product. They put in a different color bottle. And something makes sense about that, right? Like,
of course it does, right?
Yeah.
You're going to put, if you've got oily skin, you want to put on a cream, you're going to use this cream, whether you're a boy or a girl.
That was the same day Steve did that joke with me where we were walking through Bloomingdale's and, they used to have the people scenting, and giving samples and the whole first floor was like cosmetics. And we're walking by obsession for men. It was, and then Steve like slows down and goes, thanks, I already have one.
He was funny.
Yeah, very funny. Pat, the bedpan thing.
Where is he now? Do you ever hear from
him? No, I haven't heard from him in a long time. And, I should reconnect. I've been doing that with some of my friends from Binghamton that I hadn't seen in years. And you know what I think is amazing? You talked about this with me, too, after some of your homecomings. You literally pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, or maybe it's not weird, but it shouldn't surprise me because we lived with these people for 4 years.
Yeah.
Off campus, parties, RAs, whatever it might have been, in frat house. So there's a lot of our youth was growth, right? So when I hooked up with some of my friends from college, Amy, Lisa, and Cheryl, like it was weird. It was just the talking, just and we're like nothing passed. You'd never know 30 or 40 years had passed. So
right, and they still have some of the same quirks or some of the same,
just
quirks,
little ticks and things like that, like things they like, things that, and
she's still a chatterbox. She never shut up. She didn't shut up in college. She's still talking, And
I found it to be, I almost thought, one thing I will say is some friends from college have questioned why the gap in time and, we should have been together more often, whatever. But I think people forget one fundamental thing. If we graduated college in the early 80s and you were gay, you had to deal with you had to figure out your identity and how you wanted to share that with people. And sometimes you just decided to, go your own way and you're not going to tell us. You know what I'm getting at? It became
the other thing is, gay or straight, there were groups of friends. We both had them that had kids or didn't have kids.
Yep.
And the people I'm finding now, the people that had kids, the kids are now either in college or have graduated college. And now they're reaching out to reconnect because that whole 18, 20 years has been raising their kids and all the things that went with parenting, which I have a number of friends that didn't have kids. And so we just kept going on doing our thing. But we do laugh now because these people that are all of a sudden trying to reconnect and
empty nesters.
Yeah, it's like, we're not 25 anymore. You really can't go out and boom, boom, boom. But so
you could, there's a all-you-can-eat buffet.
The China buffet.
Yeah. Oh, I love that story. All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we have a story, a shop talk about California's use of certified ethnic groups to get business. The article, I'm going to just leave it at that because Tim and I will discuss this, but I think we read the same thing and got to the same conclusions. So stick around. We'll be right back after this quick break.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. They're all business, except when they're not. It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome back to The Focus Group. Tim Bennett here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. It's now time for our shop talk area of the show. John had found this article. The headline is Inside California's Gay Certification Program. And just to set the scene, I'll read the first paragraph. It says, Americans are used to handouts for favored groups, affirmative action in university admissions, corporate diversity initiatives, and minority-owned contracting requirements direct opportunities, resources, and contracts to supposedly oppressed groups such as women, Native Americans, blacks, and Hispanics. In California, state Democrats have also embraced another kind of favoritism, contracts for state-certified gay-owned businesses, or now as people would call them, LGBTQ2I, QS, LMNOP.
Shamalama ding dong.
Shamalama ding dong, XYZ. It's as a sidebar, neighbor, where Joyce, we're going out to dinner, we pull up in Rehoboth, and there's one of the new rainbow flags, and they've added the yellow,
the triangle thing,
with the purple circle. And she says, "What is that?" She says, "What is that?" I said, "Joyce, you got to keep up. That's the. I think it's the asexual or something, or I don't know what it is." She just shook her head.
We shake our head too. Well, what happened?
She goes, and you wonder why?
Color, yeah.
And she goes, "Well, whatever."
Yeah.
I just laughed. Keep the rainbow flag, rainbow. So, after I read that paragraph, I said to myself, well, this is easier said than done, because you and I have been the victims of often these programs where you either need to be certified, or you need to be female-owned or women-owned or minority-owned, and is what constitutes a minority and so forth. And this all revolved around the California Public Utility Commissions, and I was shocked about the amount of money they spent. It said $43 billion was spent on contractors in 2024. That's an outrageous amount of money. Now, we do know California is big. It's about 40 million residents, but I just thought that was a lot of money. But it goes through here about how the practices evolved and how they came about. And I'm of two schools of thought on this. I'll let you take it from here, and then I'll see if we're in the same place.
Well, first, I'm glad you read the opening paragraph, because it's sort of a hit piece. The author is making no bones about the fact that there shouldn't be any kind of this stuff, and let alone LGBTQ. Of course, he shoots himself in the foot later on when he talks about how much they're looking at, where maybe 1% of that budget that Tim mentioned, the billions of dollars,
43 billion.
43 billion would be directed to something like an LGBTQ contractor. And he calls it a scheme. Like, how this scheme raises obvious questions. How does a business... Now, this was my favorite part, though, because Tim and I have gone through this. How does a business qualify as officially gay? We got certified by the NGLCC, the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. I remember the day that Tim called me, because you had to have some kind of a certification to prove you were gay, because someone wrote a letter that didn't necessarily spell it out, right? I mean, I had a marriage license, so that was pretty easy. So anyway, the guy's not. The end result is that he feels that this is a a catch-22. It's a waste of time, and we shouldn't be doing this. I'm of two minds. Tim and I have experienced both ends of this, where Tim had actually gone to Philadelphia had an open bidding process. What was the project again?
It was for bicycle safe cycling in the city. They were trying to do bike lanes, and they needed signage and all kinds of
and our friend
graphics.
Brian Roman from AdMark 360 went with Tim to the meeting, and Tim's excited. It was a project we thought we could probably do great with. Tim comes home and he calls me from Philly, and he's like, "You're not going to believe this." So they went to the meeting, and you guys actually asked, like, why? Like, it had to be a minority owned company, and you basically made the point LGBTQ is a minority. No, it's not one of our listed things, and so no way you're going to get the contract, right?
Well, there was that. Plus, in our back pocket, Brian's mother was president of his agency.
Ah, okay.
So a female still didn't count.
Mm-hmm.
Still didn't count. They were looking for black.
And then on the NGLCC side, Tim and I joined as a requirement of doing business with some of our clients. And I went to a cocktail party they had here. They have them every month in New York. And some guy comes up to me. I'm just going to tell you the truth. And the guy says to me, he goes, "Oh, you're new here." I'm like, "Oh, yeah." He goes, "Welcome to the Ponzi scheme." I went to several of the events. Tim and I also did webinars with them. We tried to get contracts. I will tell you that unless in fact, it was more of a, like, I sell ballpoint pens, or I sell
garbage
cleaning
bags.
Services. Yeah, or something like that. Yeah. That's the kind of business you were looking at. And I'm not even sure a lot of people were getting that kind of business either.
No, and then we would have had to... We were contacted by a company that it would have cost us how many thousands of dollars to have them take us through another certification process to figure out how to do. It was for the Coast Guard and something else. There were these government things. And there was so much compliance that it wasn't worth, for two people and a bunch of freelancers like we have. There's no way. It would take us weeks to try to figure out how to fill
staff.
Yeah, which is why these big companies always get these jobs, because they have people that just fill out these grants or these applications. But yeah, the NGLCC is one of the biggest disappointments I've experienced recently in terms of what the promise of the organization is supposed to be.
Yeah.
How many? There were hundreds of companies listed, and you and I pretty much were open to talk to anybody. And I think they had two meetings for us. One of them was the Coast Guard, and one got canceled. One was Logitech. Yeah. So Logitech got canceled.
Tim brings up two great examples. We were contacted by someone, a sales rep of a small firm, a consulting firm that hooked you up with the government database for contracting. We talked to him first. Then he arranges a call with his supervisor, the woman who actually owned the company. And we get on a Zoom call, and Tim said, hey, Tim had very specific questions. One was, what kind of revenue has been brought in by the companies you've helped secure these contracts? What's the timeline to do that? And what's the usual investment? And what's the ROI on that? And I remember her answers. She was direct, and she was polite, and she was also honest. And she said, guys, I have never had such a great group of questions asked. So she ran through the whole thing, and she actually said, I've come to the conclusion that this may not be something you want to look into because of all the compliance and all that stuff. And and the other one, the Coast Guard thing we did, it was like a speed dating. That's what it was. It was speed thing. They had a 2-day thing. We spoke to the woman from the Coast Guard, who was one of the only ones who said, I'll happily talk to you guys. She was great, but again, it was all this compliance stuff. And the biggest spend that we saw from an advertising marketing point of view was the U.S. Army, right? Yeah. Recruiting.
Yep. And so then that again was you had to go through to get even considered, was just the compliance and
portfolio
certification was just crazy.
Hey, but if you did a lining for the reflecting pool, you got a no bid contract in 2 seconds if you live next to Mar-a-Lago, right?
That's the point, John. We probably could, with the Trump administration, bypass a lot of the bureaucracy. Maybe I'll send a note.
Maybe. You
and I could promote the Great American State Fair.
State Fair.
The the one thing they did say here, and this was obviously, as John said, kind of tilted against any sort of affirmative action or what they said in quotes of press groups. There is a case to say, why not just hire the most qualified?
Yeah.
And that was where my aggravation was with the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Because you're a cyclist. We've done this sort of thing before. My background,
I live in an urban area. You live in an
Brian's
urban area.
Background, we were, and I can tell you, based upon all the other companies that were there was probably about, I think there were.
You were
8
convinced
or 12
we would have had the
companies.
best shot or the best,
or we
ideas,
would have been in the top.
solutions. Yeah.
Right, we would have been in the top. And the guy tells us that we didn't qualify. We weren't minority.
No.
And Brian and I just looked at him, and Brian said, "Well, we have a woman is the president of our firm." No, didn't count. So I did follow it. Of course, they ended up hiring a company that fucked the whole thing up. I mean, it's still a disaster. People talk about what a disaster it was. But it's typical Philadelphia was just saying, we're going to just dig in our feet and we're going to hire this company that checks all these boxes. Mm-hmm. And it's a disaster. And I love every minute of it. So, I mean, they've totally screwed up the bike lanes in Philly. It is such a mess. It's unbelievable.
I read about it in our urban cycling blogs up here. Like, don't do what Philly did. This article ended, by the way, with an interesting note. The guy said, but Californians don't need an energy system delivered by gay contractors. They need an energy system that works. Utility regulators should be in the business of regulating utilities, not verifying contractors' sexual preferences. Companies should award contracts based on competence, as Tim just said, quality and cost, not the sexuality of the business owners. I think it's programs like these and the way he snarkily started the article with, we all know about admissions in college and stuff like that. This is the kernel of the anti-DEI push that's apparently been festering for quite some time. It had to be festering for quite a long time for the power of that thing to swamp everything, right?
Well, listen, it festered. It's been festering since the 80s. When I was a recruiter, some very big Fortune 10 companies, you would not believe the requests of types of people they wanted to hire. It was all checking the box. Would not talk to anybody. You could have been top of your class with an MBA from Ivy League, but if you weren't a particular group that they were looking to populate the company with, they wouldn't even talk to you. And I found that was eye-opening for me. And so there's part of me that understands where a lot of this pent-up aggravation is.
I won't use any names, but there was a point a couple of years ago where I decided it would be interesting to apply for a position in a nonprofit organization, and I did for a gay organization, LGBTQ. I remember Tim.
I got to talk
Tim,
to
you. Remember? I said, I was interviewing. I had an interview. And you're like, you're not going to get that. That's not going to happen. I'm like, how do you know? You're like, you're not going to happen. So you didn't say anything beyond that. So I have the interview. It went well. Clearly, I was probably overqualified for what they wanted to do because there's advertising, marketing, building the brand. Got basically a thanks, but no thanks. And Tim's like, I'm not surprised. And I'm like, why? He goes, you're a middle-aged white man. Yeah. They're not looking for you. And again, the kernel of this problem is that exact thing that Tim was saying. Even Tim, I'm glad you brought up the recruiting. That it was happening in the 80s as well, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, very much so. We would be told very specifically, I need a black female MBA. I don't want to talk to anybody else. And I've got someone that just graduated Penn, Wharton, top in his class. Nope. Want a black female. We need a black female. I mean, that's what they were using recruiters for. So you'd have to go try to find, and this was, before social media or anything. I mean, you have to try to figure out whether somebody was a minority or not.
Didn't your boss get a call one time and they're like, we want an Asian?
Asian, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I got the guy for you.
That doesn't have an accent.
That doesn't have.
That was.
You can't make it up. You cannot make this.
And I still remember
him
on the phone with the bank saying, "I've got one for you. I got a kid here. It's American as apple pie."
That's the exact. Tim, you never used to tell that story the exact same way.
Guy ends up with the job, got the job, but they wanted a particular, and that's what they would use. People can lie about it, but that's what they were using these executive recruiting and recruiting firms for, to find a very specific person to check the box for them.
Check the box.
Yeah.
God.
So it was interesting. It was fun.
Still is.
But,
and having been a part of that machinery, I remember, Tim, the certification process was almost beyond ridiculous because we had to be interviewed.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Well,
I don't need to
the whole
prove...
NGLCC, quite frankly, is ridiculous when you think about it, because I don't know of anybody who's ever got a drop of business.
Brian never did.
So if anybody's ever gotten business through one of these NGLCC mixers, let us know. Or if you've talked to somebody, send it to letters@focusgroupradio.com. Let us know your
Maybe
success.
you'll get socks. Maybe you'll actually get something out of it.
Well, we were forced by one of our big clients to be certified.
They didn't actually, Tim, it was one of those velvet glove things where it would look better if you had this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, but it would be better.
Because they had to check the box.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to leave it there, folks. Interesting conversation. As you can tell, Tim and I have experience with what we were talking about, which is why I chose that article, because then you get a spirited conversation. Hey, we want to thank you for joining us here on the Focus Group. We know you have many podcasts to choose from. You could also check out your audio feed for TFG Unbuttoned, our 20-minute Tuesday podcast, 3 stories in and out quick. And also summer driving seasons here. Don't text and drive, arrive alive. We say that every week and we truly mean it because we want you here next week for the Focus Group. So have a good one.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.